Welcome to the T2 Hubcast. Join Martin, Dave, Spencer and guests as they discuss all things personal and professional development. The T2 Hubcast, brought to you by the People Performance People.
So welcome to another T2 Hubcast, and I'm on my own today. It's me, Martin Johnson. We've launched the hub now over recent months, and we have more and more users coming on. And we're getting some more requests for pathways and for particular hubcasts in areas that some of our customers are really interested in. And the last couple of days, we've had a bit of an influx of inquiries around hiring and around a little bit more content and insight on some particular areas of hiring great talent. So in usual fashion, I thought I would, on my own today, come in and record a hubcast on a couple of tips, if you like, for this particular hubcast around hiring and around sort of the sourcing side of hiring great talent. So we've done stuff already on interviewing and interview techniques, and there's plenty of stuff on conducting an effective interview and structures and asking great questions, etc. But a lot of companies, a lot of organizations out there do struggle with the with the sourcing element of hiring. So I just wanted to explore a few thoughts really on this podcast. I haven't pre-prepared too much, but I'm going to go through some things that we usually share with customers in our training days around hiring great talent when it comes to sourcing in particular. So the first thing I want to share with you is around when you think about sourcing. Let's go right back to the beginning of how we tend to start that process, which is the classic CV. And I guess the first question I always ask people these days is, when it comes to CVs, is, are they really of any use in the modern day? I mean, with the emergence of the digital world and how companies, as I'll come on to, are sourcing candidates more and more these days through social media and other channels, we don't tend to, or many companies don't tend to place as much onus on the old CV screening phase of the sourcing, part of hiring. But I guess the question is are CVs really any of use? Well, my view on that is yes, of course they are. I mean, it certainly at least helps us identify the basic information about an individual. And I don't think that the value of that will ever truly go away. Yes, you could argue CVs, people can embellish the truth on CVs. Does anybody really phone up for references, for example, on a CV anymore? Some companies do and follow through on that. Certainly a lot of recruitment organizations insist on that. But, it is still a bit of hit and miss as a way of sourcing and creating a shortlist for candidates. But here's 4 things that a CV will give you and should be able to be verified if you went to the lengths to verify it. Number 1, tenure and experience. Of course, a CV is a great indicator of how much tenure somebody has or experience in the industry with similar organizations or in similar roles. Their employment history, looking at their portfolio of organizations they've worked for, will tell you a lot about this individual. In particular, the length of time they've spent, at these organizations. You do get your classic job hoppers. We always say if people are moving within 2 years, every single job role, and that should ring an alarm bell. The average tenure in 2019 of an employee in an organization, however, is around about 3.5 years. So it shouldn't ring too many alarm bells if people hop around, because it's becoming more and more part of the modern day workplace. It used to be 7 years. Everybody changed jobs every 7 years, and that was only 20 years back. Since then, it's significantly dropped over the years, and the average tenure of an employee is 3.5 years because people tend to either move on very quickly. We have more choice than ever. And it's just not jobs for life anymore. But however, a CV will give you some of that detail. It'll also, or it should give you, if it's accurate, the qualifications the person has. And this is the big age-old debate about CVs. They are stacked with skills, experience, and qualifications. And there is very little about the person and the character. usually a paragraph at the top. And we have a great saying here at T2, which says, we should really try to look to hire people or hire the right people and skill them rather than hire on skills and experience alone and pray they are the right people. Now, if you are recruiting for a heart surgeon in the NHS, that statement clearly doesn't apply, right? You have to have the skills and the qualifications as well. But in most situations, when people are sourcing candidates, they can source the right people and they can skill them very, very easily, certainly if they've got a good onboarding process and a good training model. But you will get the qualifications on the CV. So what I'm saying here on CVs is, yes, we still believe at T2 that CVs play a part. They have a role, they have a use. Even if it's an indicative view of the tenure and experience of that person, the employment history, the types of organizations that they've worked for, their potential expertise and qualifications, it will at least allow you to see if the candidate has these things. So I think use CVs, use them to support the sourcing process, but they are not the be all and end all. And remember, people can pay people these days to create them a CV that probably indicates far more experience or far more gravitas than maybe they have. So we've got to be careful with them, but we still believe they play a role in shortlisting when sourcing. One of the things I wanted to share on this Hubcast is around sourcing candidates is on job descriptions. Now, you will only attract the right kind of talent if you are cast iron clear on the description of the role you are looking to fill. And we see companies and people who are hiring fall foul of this time and time again. It is a very vague job description. Now, remember what I said earlier, people have more choice than ever in the modern day workplace through different platforms and through the digital world and people being able to work remotely and technically work for any company on the planet anywhere. They have more choice than ever. So we've got to be really clear in our whatever we do go out with our job advertisements, with our marketing, with our sourcing strategies. We have to be cast iron clear on the description of the role you are looking to fill. Things like, and I see this missing time and time again when we work with organizations on this, job title, hours, location, day-to-day expectations, salaries. Now, here's a big contentious issue. Most people will still try to source candidates for jobs without giving them a definitive salary. Not in every case, but a lot of people seem to reserve that for the interview stage. What we can say from discussing this with candidates and people and graduates and people looking for jobs and to enter the workplace is they want to know the salary before they apply, right? So because other people are doing it and we can get salary ranges elsewhere. So consider if you're going to be open and transparent in your job description with the exact salary for that role. In some roles, it's easier than others, but you need to either give a salary or a salary range, which will increase your chances of people responding to, to that job application. Be clear on the level of the role. Here's another thing. For example, is it a trainee role? Is it an apprentice role? Is it a more established role? Is it an experienced employee? What level do you need this person to have either operated at before or to fully understand what level you're asking them to operate at within this organization? Is the role specialized? Is it a discipline which requires specific requirements or qualifications? I mentioned earlier heart surgeon or, for example, an accountant. Although we're firm believers in you've got to hire the right people and skill them, you absolutely still need to hire or to make clear any specialized disciplines or qualifications or requirements for the role if it requires it. And don't fail to miss that out. We speak to people who have been through interview processes so many times and only to realize 10 minutes in they're underqualified or they don't stand a chance of getting the job, or it's wasting your time as well. So just my whole point here on job descriptions is if you're going to source candidates effectively, you've got to be cast iron clear on the role. What is it? What's the level of the role you're pitching? Everything from the job title to the hours to the day-to-day expectations of the role, salary range or exact salary if you can help it, and any specific requirements or qualifications that they may need for the role. And this is an important final point on job descriptions. always state whether there are opportunities for development and progression. One of the things we know, if you want to increase your chances of increasing that 3.5-year tenure of your employees, which everybody does, and remember that's only the average. We still do get people serving long time in roles and in organizations. But you always have to state whether there are opportunities for development or progression. It's one of the number one things on candidates' radars at the moment. It's one of the top three facets that come back in employment engagement surveys in organizations. People want career progression. And it doesn't always mean they want to be the next boss or they want to be the next director or the head of. It just means they want to have the opportunity to progress their skill set, their experience, move around, experience different roles, build their knowledge, gain more knowledge within the organization. So just make sure that in your job descriptions and applications that you're stating that the potential future opportunities for either development or progression within the organization. So a little bit there on my first two tips, which is CVs. Yes, still use them. Are they really of any use? Less and less so, but we believe they're still of some use in giving you an indicative view of the potential candidate. Job descriptions, talked about that. Number two, make sure you're not doing yourself a disservice by not including all of the facts and information in job descriptions. So when it comes to sourcing candidates, the third thing I'm going to mention for this Hubcast is social media. Now, social media has become a recruiting monster. It really has. And if you're listening to this and you're a manager in an organization or department, or you're in HR and you are not actively using social media for targeted campaigns to source your candidates, you are missing out. Let me give you some stats here on the big three. LinkedIn. LinkedIn has 530 million users as of 2019. 530 million users. It is the top site for recruitment strategies. Most organizations and recruiters use this as their primary tool. So if you engage a recruiter, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong in engaging a recruiter, but 9 times out of 10, they're deploying social media campaigns to source your candidates for you, which you could, with a bit of time and effort and focus, do yourself, right? You could argue, I ain't got the time for that. We ain't got the budget for whatever it might be. Recruiters are specialized in the area. Well, believe me, you can do it, because a lot of organizations are doing this. They have 530 million users, and it is the top site for recruitment strategies. If you are not placing job advertisements on LinkedIn, and sponsoring them and pushing them out to demographics, you are missing a trick. So you need to look into that, and you need to think about that. Twitter is 330 million users. Now, this is useful to push out links and pull in interest. We call it push and pull technology. So the use of hashtags can work. If you want to try and fish in the candidate pond of the millennial and Generation Z coming through, Twitter's not a bad place to do it. As I say, as a push and pull technology, it's not as professional and have the strategy that LinkedIn has around recruitment, but it certainly can start to push your brand and your job opportunities out to a completely different market. Facebook, 1 billion users. Jobs on Facebook feature, if you're not using that, depending on what type of business you are, it's popular with millennials and popular with Generation Z. Now, if you're a business who provides products or services to business to consumer, i.e. not business to business, to the end consumer, the individual, the everyday person, then Facebook is a great way to recruit and source candidates. It's still a great way to recruit for business to business services, but it's just a little bit more aligned to business to consumer. But they have 1 billion users, and there is a whole feature which is building and being improved on Facebook called Jobs on Facebook features. So you should check that out. But they're the big three. Now, the one I haven't mentioned there, which I fundamentally believe in, and if there's one thing you take from this Hubcast, let it be this: YouTube. Now, the amount of organizations we are working with, including ourselves, who have had success in sourcing candidates and attracting talent from YouTube, from creating very, very efficient, very succinct, very cool videos on open positions in the organization. Now, outside of Google, not many people realize this sometimes, but YouTube is the second largest search engine on the planet. people will tend to Google it and then YouTube it. And not a lot of people think of YouTube as a traditional channel to source candidates or to go out there with recruitment strategies. But believe me, you're missing a trick, because by producing, and you don't get me wrong, you have to have somebody who can bring the organization, the brand, and the role alive in the mind of the candidates. You have to have somebody good in front of camera. But if you have a professionally recorded or series of recruitment videos, almost saying, who are we? Why should you join our journey, right? What do we stand for? What roles are we looking to fill? And what would be the opportunities for any successful candidates once they've landed? And if you can have someone who is engaging, inspiring, passionate, delivering that message, and you upload it to YouTube, you're going to start to enter a whole new market for sourcing candidates. And not only that, but once it's embedded in YouTube, you can then drop that link into your LinkedIn, into your Twitter feeds, into your Facebook posts. You can use the YouTube video on multiple social media platforms. And that's where you start to bring your organization, your brand, and your open roles alive in the mind of the candidates. So if you're not using YouTube, remember, it's the second largest search engine on the planet at the minute, and you're not creating clever recruitment videos, which is, brings your brand alive in the mind of candidates, which talks passionately about the opportunities that you're offering and the future that you're offering, then you're missing a trick. So consider, if you have a YouTube account, if you don't, if you do have a YouTube account, but you're just not recruiting on it because you haven't even thought about it, think about where you could start to run a few pilots with YouTube for sourcing candidates, because it really, really does work. So best times to post on social media if you're going to go out for job advertisements. And if you think about this, 84% of employers are using social media for job advertisement now. 84%. So it's a proven technique, right? The best times to go out on LinkedIn if you're going to post a job in the UK, so let's start just in the UK for now, is between 8 and 9 a.m. in the morning. So people generally, their pattern of behavior is come in, grab my morning coffee, log on my LinkedIn, check my updates. So if you can post your job advertisements between 8 and 9 a.m., then you stand, or even a little bit earlier, you stand the best chance of people coming across your posts in their morning check-in, if you like, over coffee. And then again at 12 till 1 p.m. So again, the busy morning takes off, the LinkedIn activity goes down for a period of time or significantly reduces, and then it returns again over lunch. So people are having lunch at their desks or having lunch on their commute, on the train, whatever it might be, and they check out their LinkedIn. So 12 till 1 p.m. So in the UK, if you're going to post jobs out and you want to hit the maximum amount of, or you want to have the maximum amount of views and hits, try 8 till 9 in the morning or a little bit earlier, and 12 till 1 p.m. Best times on Twitter, according to research in the UK, is 5 till 9 p.m. on a night. So a different pattern of behavior on Twitter. I know it's a bit tricky, but if employers and organizations are going to post out job advertisements and messages on Twitter, then do it right at the end of the day, sort of 5 p.m., because people tend to update and check Twitter more so in an evening in the UK than maybe earlier on. I mean, of course, all of these platforms have been used all day long by different people, and individual user patterns will vary from person to person. But if you go on the data from a corporate perspective of when you stand the best chance of getting engagement on your posts, follow these times. So 5 p.m. till 9 p.m. on Twitter. And on Facebook, the best time to post, well, it's pretty much all day long on Facebook. You could look at the trends and none of them are bad. 10 a.m. till 3 p.m., any time between that sort of time frame on Facebook, but Facebook is quite consistent. It's quite constant, in fact, and therefore there's no real best time on that. And that's just a few tips on social media. But just remember one thing that I've said there, and I'm going to make one last point on this podcast. On social media, if you are not using LinkedIn as your core site, social media platform for recruitment strategies, you are missing out. You should be targeting demographics, targeting audiences. You should be, sponsoring your posts, because again, most recruiters out there who are earning a living doing this will use LinkedIn as a major source of sourcing candidates. So think about doing that, and it's something you can drive in the organization. YouTube. Don't forget what I said about YouTube. It is the second largest or most popular search engine outside of Google. Create fantastic, engaging videos. Have somebody charismatic, somebody who can present with power and presence in front of the camera. Sell your organization. Why us? Who are we? Who are our clients? What do we do? Why is that important? And what roles are we looking to fill? And what opportunities does that present for the successful candidate moving forward? Use YouTube, short 3 to 5 minute videos with some animation, music, whatever it might be, so you can bring your brand, your organization, your role alive in the mind of the candidate. You can then embed those YouTube links into your other social media platforms on a continuous basis over the time that you're sourcing. So my last point for this podcast, we've covered CVs, we've covered job descriptions and how important it is to be really, really transparent and detailed. And now we've just covered the use of social media. What I want to finish on therefore is recruiters, external partners. So if everything I've just said gives you an opportunity to source your own candidates, why would you still use recruiters? Well, for any of our recruiters clients listening, you'll be glad to know that we still endorse this massively, because when all said and done, it does take time, it takes patience, it takes activity, as you rightly know, to source the right candidates. But using recruiters, I always say this, it's a tongue-in-cheek joke. Using recruiters is like getting your best friend to go on a series of dates with your future partner, right? You go and see if you whittle it down to the final 3, and then I'll go on the dates, right? We've got, and I know that's a tongue-in-cheek sort of a comment there, but it can work. It can work for organizations when they're recruiting en masse, when they have temporary workers, when they have agency workers, when they have a huge churn of staff. Of course, it's impossible for a small group of people in an organization to backfill at the rate that you need to backfill. So that's where external partners can really, really help. So what I'm saying is it's got to be situationally relevant for you and right for you. But let me give you a couple of considerations if you're going to engage external partners. And if you're an external partner or recruiter, listen to this, some of the considerations you need to understand in terms of what organizations want when they engage a partner. Number 1, make sure you read the terms and conditions. There's so many arguments and disagreements that clients and recruiters fall out on because of the small print, or because they didn't fully understand the terms and conditions of the partner's agreement. So make sure you do that. Try and negotiate a fixed fee rather than a percentage. Now, if you're a recruiter listening to this, you have a golden opportunity to stop with the mass percentages and start agreeing with clients a fixed fee for certain roles, because once we have the fixed fee, we can work to a budget and we're more likely to stay around and partner you going forward. The higher the salary, the higher the percentage, it starts to become untenable for many organizations, which is why they start giving up on the recruitment partnership. So I'm a firm believer in it. As long as that fixed fee is both mutually beneficial for the recruiter and for the organization, I think everybody's a winner. Ensure you have a rebate option within the first 3 to 6 months. Now, many great recruitment companies will have this. They will absolutely understand the importance that if we pay a fee to you, this person lands and leaves after 3 months. If I've got no rebate option, I'm just pouring money down the drain and I've got to start my process again. Most solid, great recruiters will offer you on a sliding scale for the first 6 months, some for only the first 3 months, but I would push for 6. I think it's reasonable because it can take 6 months for a candidate to find their feet, and it can usual probation periods in any employment law contract or any employment contract would be a 6-month period. So I would try and have a sliding rebate agreed with your recruiter up to 6 months, which means I'll get a percentage back if this person leaves. Be involved in the interview and shortlisting process. Don't just leave it to the recruiters. They might know your organization well, but quite often the most successful partnerships are where the hiring managers do get involved in the shortlisting process as well. Feedback early if the candidates you are seeing are not of the right caliber. Don't get frustrated in silence and then just cut the partnership. Feedback if we're not seeing the right caliber of candidates and make sure that's addressed as early on in the process as we can. One of the biggest factors of disengagement between recruiters and hiring companies is when they continuously send candidates that they believe are below par or not right for the role. So make sure that open dialogue and that feedback happens, and make sure you rigorously investigate how they source their candidates. Like I say, there is some fantastic recruitment organizations out there who do a thorough job and they have differentiation. And there are those who will take your money and post on LinkedIn and Indeed and all of these other job sites, and whoever comes through, they will feed them through, right? It's just the way of the world. So make sure you investigate your partner and ask the questions of how they source candidates. What's different? How are they going to source candidates that you physically cannot get to, or you can't get to off your own accord? And why is that of value? And if you do that and you get good solid answers back, then you know you're partnering with a great recruiter. So that's all I've got for you for this Hubcast. It's 25 minutes. I hope it's been of value. This Hubcast has been around sourcing candidates. So 3 top tips for sourcing candidates, really, or 4 top tips, for sourcing candidates. CVs, are there any of use? Well, yes, they are. Still use them, but use them as an indicative screening process only. Job descriptions, there's an opportunity to get better at this. Make sure you are crystal clear, on your job description, and be as transparent as you can, including salary and all of the other great stuff. Social media, tip 3. If you are not using LinkedIn as your primary social media platform, you're missing a trick. And do not miss the opportunity to start getting smart with YouTube and embedding those YouTube videos into your social media platforms, posting at the right times to get maximum engagement so you can bring your organization, your brand, and the role alive in the mind of the candidates. And finally, external partners. There's nothing wrong in still engaging external partners to help source your candidates, but just think of some of the tips I've said. It's got to be mutually beneficial. You've got to get a good one, right? You've got to make sure the terms and conditions are understood. You've got to try and negotiate a fixed fee so it's beneficial for everybody and clearly defined. Always ensure you have a rebate option for at least 3 months, but I would prefer 6 months whilst the probation period of the candidate is being undertaken. Be involved in the interview and shortlisting process. Partner them. Don't just say, send me them and then complain when they're not right. And if they're not right, feedback early in the process and keep the partnership going. But make sure you rigorously investigate how your partner sources candidates, and make sure they are not taking your money and just doing something that you could have someone in your office doing with a bit of time, effort, and focus. And there's my top tips for sourcing candidates. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back shortly with another Hubcast where we explore the value of incorporating psychometric testing into your interview process. But for now, I'll leave you be. And thank you for listening. And I'll see you again for another T2 Hubcast.